Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our next session. It is titled Home Services, Maximizing the Value of Connectivity. And here we want to talk about how brands are leveraging connectivity throughout the home to just sort of create products or create services around connected devices. I'm Patrice Samuels, and I'll be leading this discussion. But before we get started, I do want to, sorry, I pressed the wrong thing here. I do want to thank our sponsors, Alarm.com, Amtrust, Plume, and Earties. Now, before we get into the actual discussion, I want to provide sort of a brief overview. So, as I mentioned, when we talk about connected home services, we're really talking about how brands are just leveraging the power of connectivity to create services around the connected devices that they have in the market. So some of these services might include cloud storage services for video cameras and video doorbells. We now see where all the major camera providers, including Ring, Nest, Logitech, Arlo, Canary, are providing such services. We also have replenishment services, and they're starting to emerge, and this is primarily from Amazon Dash replenishment services. These involve, connecting a wide range of devices. These devices or appliances often have built-in mechanisms that sort of indicate when the product is running low, which then generally triggers replacement from services such as Amazon Dash. Technical support services, this applies to all devices, especially those that might be difficult to set up or difficult to connect to other devices in the home. And then there are energy monitoring services, and this involves using devices such as smart plugs or smart lights or smart thermostats to help consumers to manage and monitor the energy consumption in the home. Now, the primary driver for developing these services generally include generating recurring revenue, which is obviously beneficial to the company's bottom line, and offsetting the device maintenance costs. We know that smart home devices tend to incur ongoing costs from such things as maintaining the cloud infrastructure or security and device updates, or even various technical support requirements. And of course, we have adding value to the connected devices, which consumers already own. Now, the argument here is that these services will ultimately increase the value and appeal of the products themselves and hence drive market growth. Now, each of these services have unique market drivers and barriers. And of course, the privacy as it relates to video storage or video services in general, we know that there are some privacy concerns. And of course, competition from devices with local video storage are often a problem or threaten the market then for video storage in the cloud. And of course, the low cost of electricity in some areas, if we're looking at energy monitoring services, might threaten the value proposition of energy monitoring services there. It often makes consumers unwilling to pay for services to help them manage their energy consumption. Now, despite these barriers and the fact that many of these services haven't quite gotten off the ground just yet, we do see a significant interest from consumers in these services. We have 44% of consumers who intend to purchase a smart camera reporting that cloud storage services are a must-have when purchasing these services. We also have 48% of consumers reporting that they have high interest in services that detects when their dishwasher, for example, needs detergent and automatically replenishes it. We have 38% of smart home device owners finding that a service that will install their devices on their behalf, finding those highly appealing. And also 47% who report that they'll be willing to pay $10 for a service that monitors their energy consumption patterns. So for the panel discussion today, we really want to talk about some of the new services, around these products that are emerging, and just which ones have the most significant market potential and how important these services really are for their industries going forward. But before we get into the actual discussion, I do want to get into some introductions from our panelists, and we are going to start with Tajinder, who is the co-founder and CEO of Cognitive Systems. Taj, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Taj Manku. I'm the co-founder of Cognitive Systems Incorporated. We're located in Waterloo, Canada.
All right. All right. Thank you, Taj. And next we will head on over to Jory, who is the founder and CEO of Super. Go ahead, Jory.
I'm the founder CEO of Super. Give it a little bit of background on the business. This business really came from my personal experience buying a home for the first time and discovered what most people do about home ownership. It's painful. It takes too much time, too much money, too unpredictable, not the type of experience that I truly love. The experience that I love is being a renter because you pay a monthly subscription and it's somebody else's problem. To know who to call, to know what to do, and most importantly, how to do it within a budget. And so the question in my mind was, how can you own like a renter? To enjoy your home, to enjoy your equity, without having to deal with the hassles of home ownership. Now, what I'm describing here is really a new product category, which is subscription care for the home. Within the subscription that you get from us today, it includes breakdown coverage for your systems and appliances of the home, where we pay to repair or replace. We send a servicer on your behalf. It includes maintenance services to prevent problems from happening in the first place that are accessible via copay, and a concierge to coordinate service, covered or uncovered. So at the end of the day, we're here to save you time, money, and stress, all while increasing the value of your home. Our investors include the largest reinsurer in the world, Munich Re, also Liberty Mutual, who's the third largest property casualty insurer in the US market, as well as other great Silicon Valley investors into companies like Uber and Airbnb. Folks might be familiar with the home warranty industry. It's been around for 50 years. That provides breakdown coverage. It's an industry that actually provides superior financial protections than extended warranty companies, but it is the most complained about category on Angie's List for over a decade because of long hold times, poor quality service providers, long delays in service, unreasonably denied claims, or even fraud. So we built something from the ground up as something different: faster service, higher quality service providers, more fair adjudication practices, and really protecting consumers from fraud, all with greater financial protections, prevention, and convenience. So we're here today because we see smart home as the key to unlocking a transformative home ownership experience. So our aspiration is to deliver in time 99.9% uptime of the systems and appliances in your home through a combination of preventative services together with predictive smart home technologies, which we'll talk about today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jory. And we'll move on to Tejas from Arlu Technologies. Tejas, go ahead. Okay, Tejas, would you mind checking if your microphone is still on mute? No? All right, well, we're not hearing you on our end, so we're just gonna move on to Oz for a minute while we figure out your audio issues. Sounds good? Thanks. All right, Oz, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first, please? So this is Oz from AirTies. Oz?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having AirTies in this amazing virtual conference that I really like to join every year. We started in 2004 with the focus to provide great Wi-Fi technologies for home networks. We are empowering more than 50 service providers around the globe to enable exceptional Wi-Fi experiences for their customers. With our cloud platform, we are currently managing more than 25 million homes, which would be the biggest deployment in the world. And we would typically start with improving the existing hardware in the home that operators are deploying, which in our case, that would be a broadband gateway. We would integrate our smart Wi-Fi software into the broadband gateway, and our software detects Wi-Fi issues and proactively address most of them. In cases where we cannot solve the issue with software optimization, our platform provides real-time visibility and actionable recommendation for the service providers. We offer a range of Wi-Fi mesh products, which have very small and compact form factor. And most operators using AirTies software on their gateways, they also like the performance of our mesh APs, and they offer AirTies mesh extenders to their customers. So in summary, we are offering a full ecosystem for service providers, including consumer applications and professional services for internet service providers to launch premium Wi-Fi products.
All right, thank you, Oz. I think we're gonna try to go back to Tejas and see if we have his audio figured out now. Tejas, can you try to talk again? Let's see if we're hearing you. All right, I think we might still have a little bit more to do to try to get that audio working correctly. All right, well, with that, when we get into the panel discussion, Tejas will definitely have another opportunity to introduce himself and introduce his company when answering the different panel questions. But for right now, let's go ahead and dive into the panel discussion while we try to figure out the audio issues again, Tejas. I apologize for that. All right, so the first question that I want to kick off to the panel, and just let me give you a brief overview of the flow of the panel discussion here. So we're going to ask a few questions, and then we're going to open it up to take some questions from the audience. And along with that, we will have some polling questions, and you can find the poll question, which should already be uploaded in your control panel, which is to the right of the swap card platform. So if you just look around in the control panel there, you should be able to find the poll question and be able to answer it from there. And we will, after we ask the first question, actually come back and check on your responses and sort of compare them to the panel responses. So go ahead and answer the polling question for me, please. And I will also direct that question to the audience. So the question is, as I mentioned in my initial introduction, I did talk about a number of services. I mentioned video storage services, I mentioned replenishment services, energy monitoring services, and I'm sure there are a lot more of these products that, you know, different brands are trying to build around these connected devices to really add the value and sort of generate that incremental revenue. But what I want to know is, what is the primary reason that you think, you know, smart home product manufacturers are really, you know, building these services out? Is it really to offset the cost? Is it to generate the additional revenue? Or is it really to add value to the products? And I'm sure it might be a little bit of all of them, but I want to hear your take on which one of these reasons are the primary driver for most smart home product manufacturers. And let's kick it off with Oz. You want to go ahead, Oz?
Yeah, sure. I truly believe subscription business model plays a key role in technology adoption lifecycle for many products and services. We have seen its impact on whole home Wi-Fi product in many countries. A few years ago, ISPs would launch the product with a price tag, let's say $300 for 3 mesh APs to provide Wi-Fi in every room. And they would sell it through their retail channels. And we would see penetration remains very low, and the customer base would be limited with early adapters and innovators. And as soon as business model switches to subscription service, this is when we see product crosses the chasm and it reaches the majority of the customer base. We would see volumes go up, and subscription service drives recurring revenue for service providers. And typically after the introduction of this subscription service, we are seeing operators offer the service for free for their premium customer base, which in return increases ARPU by shifting more customers to premium packages. I believe many of the smart home solutions will go through similar trends, and they will drive recurring revenue with subscription service, or they will help increase ARPU for the service providers. That being said, in the case of Wi-Fi service, let's say in every room of your house, because it is such an essential part of broadband service, I believe it will be free for all customers in the next 3-4 years. But the rest of the home, smart home solutions, I believe, will drive recurring revenue and increase ARPU.
Something wrong with the volume.
Yeah, we cannot hear Patrice.
Oh, thank you for letting me be aware of that. I didn't realize we were having some audio issues here. I had actually thrown the question out to Jory to kind of get his take on what he thinks the primary reason is for building these services or attaching these services to connected devices.
Yeah, so when you refer to home services, our business is about repair and maintenance of your home. So when you're talking about attaching smart repair and maintenance services to smart home devices, from our perspective, it's all about product value. And so, if you look at the fact that a ton of people out there have smart thermostats, So much so that obviously Google acquired Nest for $3 billion. It delivers a huge amount of convenience for consumers, but yet it's more rare for somebody to have a smart refrigerator. So, the value proposition of that convenience for a smart thermostat is just far beyond the value proposition for these smart home systems and smart appliances, where it's just more limited. So we believe that the way to drive consumer adoption of these smart systems and smart appliances is by attaching a service that makes repair and maintenance of those systems seamless. So when there's a maintenance or repair code driven by a manufacturer's equipment, or there's also third-party hardware that can trigger certain types of codes, we can dispatch service immediately. But it's not only about being that type of seamless experience, it's also about being predictive. And so that means fixing things before they break. And the technology is available today. It's not the technology availability that's really the barrier. The barrier to the consumer adoption is really marrying those technology capabilities with the right service offering. And that's a big piece of what we can do for systems and appliance manufacturers to really drive that consumer adoption and deliver just a transformative experience for their customers.
Okay, thanks. So what I'm getting from you is that the customer experience is really so important that customers will be willing to, or more willing to, buy products that have these attached support services to them. So definitely, yes. Thank you for that. Now, I think we have Tejas back, so I'm going to give him an opportunity to introduce himself and jump in on this topic. Why are brands adding these services? Go ahead, Tejas.
Thanks, Patrice. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Great.
Awesome. And thanks to the team for fixing the issue. Hey, so Tejas Shah, I'm Senior Vice President of Product and CIO at Arlo. Arlo is a home security solutions company. We use the power of IoT and cloud to deliver world-class security experiences. And this topic is very relevant, as Oz and Jerry explained. We are seeing a significant shift in consumers' expectation from electronics products or any solutions, where it used to be that consumers bought products with a set features, and that was it. And now, when consumers invest in any technology, they expect it to evolve as new features become available. They want to maximize their value. They want to keep on getting more. That's why we believe that our products are continuously delivering additional value once consumers installs them in the home, and they not only help them protect what they care about the most, but they also help them connect with other ecosystem product, voice ecosystem, and deliver additional use cases. So very excited. Thanks for inviting me to the panel.
All right, let's go back to my other screen here. I'm going to ask you to jump in and give your thoughts, Tejas, on the primary driver for launching these services.
Yeah, I think there are a few. One is enhance value from the devices. Consumers want to keep on getting more from their devices. Consumers expect, especially for the use cases like security, I can speak to that, where it is extremely important that the quality of experience is maintained. The products keep on working as expected for a long, long time. And there is more and more intelligence coming out of that product. Consumers are willing to pay for that service. So it is, in my opinion, consumers pay for services for getting enhanced value. They pay for connectivity with other ecosystem. They pay for a guarantee of service when they need help from the company. So there are several reasons why consumers are willing to pay for the service.
Okay, thank you. So I did mention a few, again, services in my intro: the video storage, the energy monitoring, the replenishment, technical support. And of course, you guys have mentioned other services as well, such as warranty services and security services. So I am interested in getting your thoughts on which of these services you think have the strongest market potential and why. Let's kick that off with Tejas. You want to go ahead again?
Sure. I would definitely say security. Absolutely. Not just because I work at Arlo, because I think that first, the technology is becoming more and more affordable. Many households wanted security, but it was just too expensive. With DIY advancements in DIY technology, advancements in cloud, and video monitoring solutions, I think the technology is more affordable. The world is becoming less and less safer, unfortunately, and consumers want to leverage the power of connectivity to ensure that what they love, what they care about is safe. So I think that, in my opinion, consumers will definitely want to prioritize security and safety for paying for service.
Okay, so George, since you specifically called out sort of that ongoing home warranty, home service, I think I want to have you jump in on this one as well.
Yeah, so I mean, from our point of view, we bring a value proposition that over time we will deliver on 3 out of 4. So we already talked about delivering a repair and maintenance service for your systems and appliances in the home, and so that's really kind of in terms of what you say in terms of technical support. And then once those capabilities are installed and enabled, then you can do some really interesting things. So, these technologies can also signal the need for replenishment of disposable components of the system, like filters. So I'm not talking about like meal delivery services. I'm talking about filters for things like your HVAC system or for your refrigerator, the water filter in your refrigerator. And then also when you talk about energy monitoring, and you think about it inside of our category, separate, which is different than like, say, what a thermostat would give you. The question in my mind is how you make the data that we would have actionable by the consumer. And I think one of the most interesting things to think about here is how we can help consumers quantify cost savings of investments into more energy efficient systems, which is different than like just looking at the energy monitoring of what you have today. And so if you think about, if you had professional management for commercial properties, the professional managers of those commercial properties are quantifying the impact of making investments into more energy efficient systems, but yet it's difficult for a consumer to really do that. More energy efficient systems are presented to them with this promise that it's going to deliver certain types of cost savings, but it's really kind of unknowable for them to know exactly what type of ROI they're actually going to get. But that's different for us if we understand through smart home technologies the runtime of these various systems, so we can actually quantify that value to them and present those options to them at time of replacement of the system.
Okay, so what I'm getting from you then is that it's not necessarily one specific service that's going to stand out. As a matter of being able to provide that ongoing value with whichever service is launched that's really going to help it have that longevity or sustainability in the industry.
Yeah, I think it's about deploying a service, a solution that over time can really kind of fulfill on all these different value propositions. It's not one versus another, although it's really kind of one, which is much more of the focus of the business today and what is available given consumer adoption of these types of devices. But these things start to build one on top of the other. Like any technology platform, they start to build in terms of what service can be deployed on it and what value can be delivered to the consumer.
Got it. Taj, did you want to jump in here at all?
Sure. Just let me a little bit about cognitive first, because then it sets sort of context to my answer. So as Cognitive as a company, we basically are a company that puts software on top of Wi-Fi access points. And by putting this software on top of access point, we deliver a different service. We sort of convert all the client devices that are connected to that access point to be motion sensors. And what that does is if a person is moving through their house and let's say they're walking by the Apple TV, they'll say, hey, person is beside the Apple TV and so forth. And this just allows other applications to be mounted on that. So in relationship to what we're talking about, I think the video service and or in general monitoring services are an important aspect of this smart home. Is simply because I don't want to categorize it simply as video. Video is a very important part. A video really gives you context of what's sort of happening in your house, but typically most people have video outside, and that provides a service. But there's also the service of monitoring what's happening in the house, which leads to other services, which you can monetize and get recurring revenue. So for example, if you can monitor what's happening in your house, you can also then start looking at elderly care solutions. You can also look at security solutions within the house. You can also look at things like knowing what's happening in the house, like what time the house went to sleep, what time it woke up, did somebody come home at this time, and it sort of provides context. And that's a service that you can apply simply by upgrading software on, for example, a router. But generally speaking, we see video as being fairly important, but we also see video sort of going towards, or monitoring going towards, the direction of adding other services and other types of features. For example, just knowing that, hey, somebody dropped off a package at your house, the dog walker came at the right time to take the dogs out, and it's sort of extra features that are introduced by the hardware that already pre-exists within your home.
Right.
Got it. So it sounds like you're saying, something similar to what Jory was saying, that, you really just need to continuously add value to these services or products. And one of the ways that you emphasize it, of course, by building in this context that is relevant and important for the consumer. So the question I want to throw out there then is, do you think these services or a lot of times we hear things like, hardware is going to become commoditized or obsolete, and it's the AI and the services that are built on top of these products that are going to make them competitive, going forward. So I want to get your take on that. Do you think building these services on these devices are actually going to be very necessary for their sustenance in the industry, or for their sustenance in general?
Yeah, so from our point of view, we sort of think of it, when people put hardware into your house now, right? What they're looking for is, now they have the ability to always do software updates to these devices. And if you can start introducing features in these software updates, just like, for example, I take Tesla as an example, right? You have a car, and now you can update things and add features because it has the processing power or the ability to do that. We also see, if you can add hardware and you sort of provide the hardware in such a way that it's scalable, either on the platform itself or have a scalable cloud system where you can then add extra features. And for us, we sort of look at it like that in terms of what Cognitive does, right? We know that there's routers out there. There's many, many routers out there. And if you can now say, look, I can add this extra feature and sort of get some recurring revenue from it by maybe saying, look, we have this elderly care solution to monitor your loved ones. We can upgrade it onto your router or onto your hardware. And then, that will give us an ability to get some revenue. Also sort of delight the customer that, hey, your device that you bought actually does more than the way you actually bought it, what you actually bought it for.
Got it. Any other thoughts on whether or not how important these services will be going forward?
Yeah, I can maybe add to that. I mean, I want to kind of acknowledge what Taj and Jory said. Just to give you some example, right? We have more than 18 million cameras live in the market today, in the install base. We upload more than 200 million videos a day, which is way bigger than a lot of public video platforms. But that's not where we want to end. To Taj's point, a few quarters back, we introduced a service where we can detect packaging being dropped and being picked up at your front door, right? And that added so much value to our existing install base that we saw significant growth in our services from that feature, right? We also recently added an audio analytics, AI-enabled audio analytics, where if a carbon monoxide alarm goes off in your home, or a smoke detector alarm goes off in your home, the camera can listen to the sound pattern and notify the consumer and save lives. So a lot of these features, when the hardware was installed in the home, they did not exist. But since then, as the technology became available, we made it available to our consumers, and they see additional value to it. And we see loyalty, we see additional subscription growth, willingness to pay more from the subscription base. So I think hardware is extremely important, quality of hardware. But at the same time, ability to implement more and more services through either cloud or other software updates, as Taj mentioned, is also equally important.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, so I want to bring you here in Oz, and I know that AirTies is really about management of Wi-Fi throughout the home and connectivity, and we also know that solid and stable connectivity is going to be very important to the success of any of these services that we're talking about here today. So can you tell me what kind of shifts do you think will be necessary for Wi-Fi in the home to be, just to enable these services, or to usher in this new wave of connected services?
I think biggest challenge will be dependency on the device firmware, access point firmwares. In the past, controlling the quality of the firmware, the software you deploy on the APs and gateways would be sufficient to guarantee Wi-Fi service. But now we are seeing new Wi-Fi clients introduced to market every day. So we are already dealing with thousands of different devices in the field, and each client may change its Wi-Fi behavior completely after a software update. We often see this on mobile clients. After iOS or Android updates, their Wi-Fi behavior would completely change. So if you have to release a new firmware every time there is a new client or new operating system in the market, this is not manageable. So a smart Wi-Fi software that can be configured remotely by cloud becomes extremely important. So that's why we turned our Wi-Fi Edge software into a very flexible software stack, where we can fine-tune all low-level Wi-Fi settings through cloud without changing the software. That way, we can rapidly respond to brand new devices or changes in the applications. Just as an example, 1 year ago, we didn't have that many connected fitness bikes in our networks. So each new application has unique Wi-Fi needs. Some requires low latency, some requires zero packet loss. Therefore, ability to optimize Wi-Fi without changing the firmware becomes very critical to cope with next wave of home services.
Got it. Thanks. And I really want to just take a minute to bring up the responses for the poll question that we asked earlier before I move into business models. So we were talking about, what the primary reasons were, and certainly there was a mixed bag of responses among the panelists, but the audience seemed to think that driving recurring revenue is the primary reason, or the leading reason among brands for doing so. Increasing the product value and market demand was a close enough second, with 37% of the audience selecting that answer. It was 56% actually that selected driving recurring revenue, and then we have 7% who think offsetting the rising product costs is the leading reason for that. All right, so with that, I want to shift a little bit into talking about business models around these services. Now, we've talked a lot, and we've been hearing a lot about subscription fatigue recently. It's a term that's being really thrown around a lot, suggesting that consumers are really just tired of having a subscription service for a bunch of different products and use cases throughout the home. And probably, what we need is to have a more unified service where they're paying one subscription for a number of services, or maybe just different business models around different services where they're not paying a monthly fee for the service, but different strategies. So just trying to get your thought, because of course a lot of these services, and you did mention that driving, the audience certainly did mention too, that driving recurring revenues is going to be the primary reason for launching a lot of these services. So is that subscription business model still the best way to have consumers pay for these services? Is there another strategy that might be better, or that can be used along with subscriptions? What are your thoughts on the subscription business model?
Yeah,
go ahead. Anyone can start first.
Okay. So I think yes. Right now, a lot of people are subscribing to this, as you said, and people are getting a little bit wary about paying for all these models. And the examples that I can sort of give where people you can sort of deliver a service where they don't pay, and that is a very important part of when you have a device within somebody's house. And I'm talking specifically around ISPs, where they provide, let's say, a gateway or whatever. I think having their customer interact with that device more often than not gets a stickiness to them. So if there's features that you can add where they are opening their app once in a while, looking at it, So for example, in ISPs, when they actually have an app for monitoring, let's say Wi-Fi or monitoring, a very small percentage of those people actually physically download that app for the network or for anything. But if you add services on top of that, you can now get a better stickiness with your customer from a marketing perspective, and that will help your churn. It'll keep you from moving from one provider to another provider. And the same thing applies for a lot of things. If you have a certain device and you want your customer to retain that device, the only way to really do that is to provide him services on top of that make him use your device, so that you can sort of maximize your marketing or your ability to be able to get your customer to sort of look at what you've got. And I think that is an important aspect. But generally speaking, right now, I think a lot of the stuff with regards to why people have subscription is there is an offload of cost associated with the cloud. And I know a lot of people are trying to move that closer to the device, but it's very difficult to maintain that cloud and without getting some sort of revenue back from them. And that is something that is a challenge, but I'm sure there's going to be ways to sort that out in the future.
All right. Any other thoughts about the subscription business model, and if there are any other alternatives that can be introduced to help for consumers to pay for these services?
Well, I obviously have a very biased opinion because I come from a subscription business, but I'll make an analogy here, which is my last business, which I started about 15 years ago, is in the mobile advertising industry prior to the iPhone being deployed, and you had examples where there was an incredible amount of adoption of these new devices when the iPhone first came out, in part because of either subsidies by carriers or because of allowing for payments over time. And what ended up happening was, and the reason for that is there are additional value points for those mobile operators in terms of the data utilization and the subscription that would come out of that. I would make the same analogy in terms of our business as it relates to systems and appliance manufacturers and the opportunities we can potentially subsidize things as it relates to benefits for our business. If it reduces our claims expense, then great. I'd be happy to subsidize some of those things, which means that that's a revenue possibility. That's a revenue stream for that manufacturer of systems and appliances, where you can get greater consumer adoption because it's really being bundled as part of a broader solution. So whether it's for us reducing our claims expense, increasing our retention, any of the value points to our business, it's potentially something we can subsidize, get greater consumer adoption. Everybody wins in that type of scenario. So I think those types of things, when you're talking about smart home devices of the price point in our category, can be significantly additive.
Thanks. All right, and before I get into the audience questions, I do want to get your thoughts on, we are living in the middle of a pandemic right now, so I'm just trying to get a sense of, that living, we're definitely seeing how that's changing our use of Wi-Fi, both, in the home, at work, for conferences, all of that. So I'm just trying to get a sense of, do you think the shifts in how we're using Wi-Fi now has any implications at all for the success of these services? And Oz, I'm going to bring you in here because I know you have a lot of knowledge and experience about managing Wi-Fi. Is there anything that will shift or that we need to be doing differently as we consider that we're living in the middle of a global pandemic?
I think it is the other way around. If Wi-Fi and connectivity cannot cope with these services, customers will be replacing their connectivity suppliers, like their operators. So it's really key that Wi-Fi actually really gets ready for this capacity in general. And what we are seeing after COVID is, so basically every factor that makes your Wi-Fi worse increased, such as people are using Wi-Fi in different locations of the house that are, let's say, maybe not getting that good Wi-Fi coverage. Your neighbors are using Wi-Fi more intensely, which means more interference for your network. So we are seeing all these factors that is lowering your bandwidth increase, and at the same time, your demand increase. So you need more Wi-Fi for your home network. So that's what we call the catalyst effect, that actually the Wi-Fi usage increased by 60% according to our data, but the Wi-Fi experienced problems more than doubled during, right after the COVID lockdowns and stay-at-home orders. So the three major trends we are seeing to cope with this new world is first of all proactive resolution with software. So the gateway and access points to detect these problems and proactively solve these problems as much as possible, and then customers to do self-install and troubleshooting capabilities, because we have seen during the lockdowns most of the technicians and technical personnel couldn't visit homes. So customer self-installation and troubleshooting became really critical. And the other trend is really acceleration in the upgrade to latest Wi-Fi 6 platform. So Wi-Fi 6 really gives you better bandwidth, and it's designed for really intense Wi-Fi usage, which we are going through today.
Got it. Got it. All right. Thank you. We have a few more minutes. Let me jump into some of our audience questions. And the first one is, what capability must be present to be a smart home service? So in terms of our definition that we were using for this panel discussion, we were talking about any service that is offered on top of a smart home device that's going to drive additional value for the customer, as well as drive recurring revenue for the provider. So some of the examples that I gave before were video storage services or cloud storage services for video cameras and video doorbells. So of course, being able to store these services, these the video feeds, so consumers can, go back to that whenever they need it. That's providing value for consumers. And then of course, paying a monthly fee for access to your video after a certain period is of course driving recurring revenues for the provider as well. But of course, I'm going to ask the panelists to jump in here as well, and anyone can jump in. I mean, do you all have any thoughts around what constitutes a connected home service, or what capabilities must be present is what the actual question said?
Yeah, I can probably add to that, right? I think, in terms of video services, like you mentioned, storage and access to storage is very important. But going forward, there are additional elements like artificial intelligence, providing context to the video, providing ability to connect to your devices and take action, giving assurance on privacy and security, and also ability to help customer troubleshoot their devices or ecosystem is going to be very important. Like Oz said, right? I mean, it is very important that, when consumer needs help, they can get help remotely from the device manufacturer. I also believe that, for a lot of smart home products, ability to connect to ecosystems is also going to be important. For example, Arlo connects with Alexa, Google Home, Apple HomeKit, Samsung SmartThings, IFTTT. We are uniformly connecting with all ecosystems. The reason is most homes now have consumers who use different devices. My wife uses Apple, I'm using Android, we have Alexa device at home. There are a lot of Samsung devices in our home who connect to our ecosystem. So ability to connect seamlessly with all ecosystem is also going to be extremely important, in my opinion. So some of the elements on top of basic feature of the product.
Got it. Makes total sense. All right, I'm going to throw one more question your way on before we close. And that question is, could you please elaborate on the types of smart home services emerging that are designed for the silver economy, especially since this category of consumer may not be tech savvy? That's a good question. I think Jory might want to jump in on this one. Jory,
yeah, I mean, seniors on a fixed income who frequently are targeted by service providers for fraud are a great audience and a great set of customers for our service, and can actually be purchased by their children on their behalf. And for us to be able to provide all the value propositions that I've just described, it's all behind the scenes. So it's not something that requires that person to use an app or get online or any of those types of things. We're operating it behind the scenes. So I think, we're what a lot of those people need.
Right.
I can share stories about my mother-in-law and some experiences she just had, and how we could have helped in that situation. So I'm there 100%.
Nice little plug there, Jory. All right, but that will have to be our last comment. Thank you so much, Taj, Jory, Tejas, and Oz for your input here. It was very much appreciated. And we are about to move into our next session, which is going to be home security growth, DIY, and pro channels, and that is going to start at 1 p.m. Central Time. Again, I do want to take this opportunity before we close out to thank our sponsors, Alarm.com, Amtrust, Plume, and Airties. All right, and also we want to thank our supporters. They're all listed there. We have a number of them, platinum supporters as well as additional supporters. They're listed. All the logos are on your screen. And with that, I will close out this session. Stay tuned for your next session again, which will be starting at 1 p.m. With that, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.
We see Wi-Fi as a powerful vehicle to deliver exceptional digital life experiences. A technology the human eye cannot see is powered by hundreds of engineers and countless hours of research to deliver the quality of experience customers want. We have perfected and applied this human intelligence around the world for more than 15 years. Through exploration of fields of science, a material we forge and simplify to enable innovation. Every day, we connect technology and human intelligence, empowering service providers to enable the most amazing digital experiences for their customers around the globe, for education, work, or entertainment. We are Wi-Fi Intelligence. We are Airties.